Hello, I'm Kevin Berger, author of Atheism is Untenable, a book in which I argue why skeptical atheism crumbles beneath its own weight. On this channel, I don't engage in apologetics. Instead, I apply the principles of polemics and skepticism to atheism and the claims made by atheists, of which, despite their claims to the contrary, there are many, including these, among others. This is Justified Nonetheless. If you enjoy or find my content interesting or informative, be sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications, like and share, and be sure to check out the Justified Nonetheless Patron project for even more exclusive content. Hello, my little tumbleweeds. If you haven't noticed, I have begun scheduling my video releases. Moving forward, I intend to premiere them on YouTube weekly at midnight on Sundays, and I'll be offering early releases to my patrons through the Patreon page, which is also named Justified Nonetheless. There's also exclusive content available to my patrons, so please do check that out. I am doing this totally based on donations, so if you're willing and able, this would be greatly appreciated. That being said, sometimes things will happen which will cause deviation, and this is one such occasion. I logged on to YouTube today, and I had an opportunity to just fall into my lap to respond to a video from Matt Dillahunty that appeared in my feed. In said video, which will be linked in the description, he discussed the Black Raven paradox and made the following claim.
I'm non-fictional. And I'm not a god, which means that I am evidence that all gods are fictional. And if you exist and you're not a god, so are you. And so is every other human being on the planet that exists and is not a god, and every other human being that has ever existed and is not a god, and every grain of sand that's existed and is not a god, and every planet and every star and every mote of dust, every atom that has ever existed that is not a god is another data point against gods. It's another data point that all gods are fictional. So, what's your take on Hempel's paradox? Do you think it's a paradox at all? Do you think there's a solution or a resolution? Do you have a resolution that refutes my claim that I am evidence that all gods are fictional?
I responded directly in the video, in the comments, and part of what I'm going to say now comes directly from that comment. As of now, he has not responded to me, otherwise I'd mention that. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on the Black Raven paradox. You can check out his video, or you can do your own research for that, which I always recommend anyway, but I will give a brief explanation. Essentially, for every proposition, there is also a negation. In this instance, the proposition is all things that are ravens are also black. And the negation of this would be all things that are not black are not ravens. Hypothetically speaking, for each proposition, there is positive evidence. In this case, everything that is black and is also a raven. There's negative or disconfirming evidence. In this case, any non-black raven, and contrapositive evidence. In this case, every non-black non-raven. The presumed paradox then arises from the usage of this contrapositive information as if it constitutes positive evidence of the proposition, which seems intuitively wrong despite being seemingly functionally equivalent. The two biggest problems that I see arise from this rationale are, one, the commission of a black swan fallacy, and two, a fallacy of composition. When one makes the inference that all members of the subset, ravens, are also members of the superset, things that are black, this is a black swan fallacy because there may be some outlier in the subset that is not a member of the superset. Similarly, no amount of examples of the contrapositive will ever truly constitute evidence of the negation of the original proposition. That is to say, if the original proposition is if it is a raven, it is black, the negation of this proposition is, if it is not black, it is not a raven. However, no matter how many examples of things that one finds that is neither black nor a raven nor either, this will never be evidence to substantiate the assertion, if it is not black, it is not a raven, because of the aforementioned black swan fallacy. Those examples will only ever be evidence that they were not ravens. This also involves a fallacy of affirming the consequent. This is why it seems intuitively wrong to consider red apples as evidence that all ravens are black. It's logically fallacious. This is why intuition does have value. Now, I can anticipate that people will argue that a non-black, non-raven is evidence of the proposition that all ravens are black because it is a point of data that indicates this to be the case. However, this raises an interesting question. A proposition can be either true or untrue, but can evidence be untrue? No, evidence itself is not inherently true or false. It's the interpretation of evidence in relation to a proposition that determines its validity. As such, evidence can be misleading or misinterpreted. If the use of contrapositives as evidence for a proposition results in a logically flawed conclusion, it doesn't make the evidence itself untrue. Rather, it highlights a flaw in the reasoning process or the method of interpreting the evidence, which underscores why it is ill-advised to accept contrapositives as evidence in lieu of true positives. As the black raven paradox illustrates, the black raven paradox is a cautionary tale. As it pertains to the proposed existence of a deity, the fact that specific deities can be demonstrated as being fictitious will likewise only ever be evidence that those specific deities are fictitious. It will never constitute evidence that all deities are fictitious. Indeed, even if it could be conclusively demonstrated that every religion is wrong, that still wouldn't constitute evidence that no deity exists, as one could easily exist without any affiliation with any religion. Therefore, as it pertains to Matt's claim that he is evidence that all deities are fictitious, no, he's not. He is and will only ever be evidence of the fact that he is not a deity, for the reasons already explained. With that, I will tell you once again, even if your beliefs aren't necessarily true, they should be justified nonetheless.